What's up, everyone? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with SPY, Tsla, Nvda, NQES, the QQQ, and many tickers out there. I'm going to break down what's happening with the overall market moving forward as we have important data coming out for tomorrow, what you should be watching for in the charts moving forward. Let me just mention that I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total. And the offer ends very soon in just about 6 days from now. Anyways, for the market, I just wanted to mention that we saw a very, very interesting day. We had important data that came out for the GDP numbers. And let me just make it very clear. All the GDP numbers were above expectations except for GDP sales. So we got good data today. The GDP numbers were decent. GDP growth rate was above expectations. And initial jobless claims was also below expectations, which is a bit more positive for the markets. But check this out, guys. What did the market do? The market pumped and pumped and pumped. It was holding up nicely. Then at the end of the day, the bears came back and they smacked the market right back down. And we got a red close on SPY and also for the QQQ. So this is telling us that even if we get decent data, the bears are still strong. The bears still have an edge over the market. The bears could still smack things right back down. That's what's happening so far. Obviously, very close to this 536 area. That's the support I called out earlier. Very close to it, 536 to 537. We have this support, and there are buyers still trying to hold that. But let me just make it very clear the chart is still showing weakness, especially when we look at the daily time frame. So technicals are looking kind of weak for SPY, also for the QQQ. And you want to be very careful in looking at the way the charts are moving. We still have this gap to fill. We almost completely filled it. I don't think the gap is fully filled yet, so you want to be very, very careful with this. And there is still more risk of downside if we continue to lose these supports. So what's happening tomorrow? Tomorrow we have some very important data coming out. I'm going to break this down first before I break down the charts. Please note that 1 hour before the market opens, we have the PCE data report coming out. PCE is very similar to CPI. It's another important inflationary measure. It's widely accepted by the Fed for research and data, and the Fed also uses this when it comes to their policy making. So this is very important. Remember that PCE is highly dictated by CPI. So whenever CPI looks like, it tends to be very similar to that of PCE. For tomorrow, we're expecting 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. for PCE year over year to be at about 2.5% for all items, and core needs to be around 2.5% or below that for all these different metrics year over year. For month over month, we're expecting 0 to 0.1% for both core and all items PCE. So get ready for some interesting price action. And that's for month over month, by the way. Get ready for all of this 1 hour before the market opens. Now, let me note that when it comes to the important CPI numbers, the data has been decent so far. We actually got a nice decline in CPI the last time it came out for the month of June. There's also been a big decline so far in June as well. So far, the numbers are looking pretty good for CPI. There's a good chance that this may continue as time goes on. So CPI is looking pretty decent. It's looking pretty good. And then for PCE, there's a very, very good chance we're going to see some very similar numbers. So I presume that we're going to get a decent PCE, and I think everything will be aligned with expectations, if not below expectations, especially as we're looking at how the numbers look relative to before. So I think we're going to get a decent PCE thanks to the way CPI is looking and all these different factors. But there's no guarantee the market's going to continue to hold up because of other factors such as manipulation. Right now, fear is dictating the markets. The market is becoming more and more fearful. Greed is not making up sentiment, and that's causing a big shift. Momentum is also quite fearful. We're actually seeing a dip right now as we're getting very close to 125 daily moving average on the S&P 500. More weakness is developing. Also, the puts and call option positioning is still at neutral. The 5-day average actually is continuing to hold upwards. That's showing some weakness. And the VIX is continuing to break out, which is once again showing weakness for the charts. So right now, the bears still have the edge. In terms of earnings, there's not really much coming out for the rest of the week. We just have Charter and just a few others. Nothing too big, nothing worth speaking about. And one last thing to talk about before I break down the charts is the current options chain for SPY. Please note that we have over 430,000 of these calls expiring. And right now, the majority of them are out of the money. We also have over 800,000 puts expiring with the 547 max pain. And right now, the puts are gaining the edge. Despite the fact that there are more of them, max pain's at 547, but that doesn't really matter as much. What matters was going to be what the market makers try to pull. So what I presume is going to happen is this, okay? First thing you have to remember is the levels on SPY. I want to talk about some very, very important levels. We're going to be looking at this 537 to 536 area. This is where we had this previous resistance becoming support. If SPY loses 537 to 536, we're going to be dipping all the way down to about 531 in my opinion. If we bounce off 537, watch 540 as resistance, 542 And then finally, if that breaks, there's 544 as the next resistance level above that. Then we have the high of the day from today. Overall, those are going to be resistance and support levels. But let me just note that I do see a problem. Technically speaking, we do look bearish. There's a big downtrend that's still very strong. And even when the GDP numbers were decent, the market still failed to hold up. It did push initially only to reject. So we did get a big bounce and then a pullback. So I want to make some very, very interesting notes that even if we get a decent PC, we might see the market rebound. That's the most likely possibility. We could be looking for a retest of 542, if not 544. And if we establish a lower high, if we don't break the high of the day today, we could see another rug pull and we could continue to fall all the way down to at least 536 to complete this gap fill all the way down here. So I think that the most likely possibility is tomorrow we gap up and we try to push a little bit higher thanks to PCE. I don't know if it's going to be a big reversal though. We need to see if we can try to break above the high of the day. If SPY can break 548, we turn back to bullish. If we fail to break that and hold above that, then there's going to be a risk of more downside. So the most likely possibility is we rebound in the morning, retest our 50 EMA around 542. Maybe it goes a little bit higher. But if we don't end up breaking 548, that's going to be a very, very big test. Then we could reject and come back down. We may complete this gap fill all the way down to the 536s. So there is a risk of more downside for SPY. I still see that as a strong possibility, so just be very, very careful. And we'll see if we get a big U-turn or not in the markets, but as of right now, the trend is bearish and it favors a little pop and drop as the most likely possibility. Obviously, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know for sure. It depends on the PCE data, but that's the most likely technical move from what I'm looking at. For Nvda, we're still looking kind of bearish. We have another big gap to fill over here on the daily time frame all the way down towards 95 area. I don't think Nvidia is going to drop that far just yet. We still have a double top and we are kind of bearish. We could rebound depending on the PCE report, but watch 115 and 118 is key resistance levels. If we break past 120, we will turn more bullish. If we fail to do so, we could establish a lower high towards 116 and then reject and start tipping back down. I think the most likely possibility is we pump back up to 115. And we could get a rejection. There is a risk of that looking at the current technicals. So just be very careful. So we'll see what ends up happening. For Bitcoin has a nice uptrend that's being established right over here. I think that this could continue to push higher as we have a nice looking structure. But my concern comes from the fact that when you zoom out like this, let me show you something very interesting. On the 4-hour time frame, even though Bitcoin's been trying to uptrend for the last couple of days, my concern is that this might be forming a head and shoulders. So we're at some key resistance right now on Bitcoin. We called out 65,500 in my earlier video. We ended up reaching, I'm sorry, not 65,500, 66,000. I called that out and we did touch that. If we reject here and we lose our 200 EMA, expect a rug pull in Bitcoin. If we break past 66,000, we could be looking for 67,000 as our next target. Watch for a big test in Bitcoin. There's a possible head and shoulders, so just be very careful. For SPX or ES came down to fill this gap. I think it filled the gap. And we're going to be watching a similar move. There's a big downtrend on ES. It's still looking bearish. There might be a rebound tomorrow morning. Back up very close to about at least 54.80 should be coming. But then we'll see if we get a big rejection. If we lose the low of the day, we could be dipping all the way down to 5,400 flat for another rug pull. So just be very careful. For SPX, we're also looking kind of bearish. One concern I have is that SPX has not completed this gap fill. There's still room for more downside all the way down to 53.75. It's still looking more bearish to me. It is possible we rebound to about 5,400, then we end up dipping later on. Watch to see if that ends up being the case or not. For others out there, we also have more weakness. We also have Tesla. Tesla's looking like it wants to rebound a bit, but I'm just going to be very apprehensive and careful with this 200 EMA. I think we're going to be retesting 225 tomorrow. If that breaks, we could be going all the way up to about 230, but just be careful. I want everyone to be very, very careful with this because there's a lot of manipulation in the markets. And if we do see Tesla rebound a bit, we could still reject and establish a lower high. If we don't get back above 232, there is still a risk of Tesla pushing higher than rejecting, so just be very careful. I think we're going to be retesting 225, kind of gap up and push tomorrow off PCE, and we'll see if Tesla rejects or not. The 4-hour is trying to turn more bullish. This does favor a little bit more upside. We'll see if 225 breaks. If it does, we could go higher, but watch for that test tomorrow. I think we're going to be testing 225, and we'll see if you reject or not. For NQ, the chart is still more bearish. We kind of rejected a bit. I think we could rebound tomorrow towards 19,150, and we'll see if we get a rejection, start tipping lower from here. If we do get that rejection, we could be tipping all the way down towards 18,000 800, but we'll have to watch and see if that ends up being the case. We're barely holding 19,000, guys, and it's looking very risky on NQ. Expect it to push a little bit in the morning and then possibly reject. If we lose 19,000, there's going to be a bigger rug pull all the way down to 18,800. So be very, very careful. For the QQQ is also on a bit of a downtrend right over here. We're continuing to fall. We're going to be looking for another rebound. Watch 460 as resistance. If that breaks, look for 464. If we don't break past 464, we could reject. If we do lose support at 455, our target's going to be all the way down here towards 450. And if that fails us, 444 is coming. But I think 450 is going to be a key psychological level. So in my personal opinion, I presume we're going to rebound tomorrow. I think that there's a good chance that the QQQ retests 462, if not 465. And then we'll be watching to see if we get another rejection. Look for a little rebound and possibly rejection again. And we could be coming back down to where this wick is, down to 455 all over again. There is still a risk of that if we don't end up holding and breaking past the high of the day because of how we're performing so far. For Aapl, Apple's on a bit of a downtrend as well, but it's trying to base over here around this 216 area. Tomorrow it might be retesting just under 220. If it rejects here, we'll be coming back down towards 217. If it breaks 220, we turn back to bullish. My gut tells me it might come just below 220, then maybe reject, and there still could be a downside. The trend is still kind of weak on Aapl. We'll have to see if we could get a counter trend bounce or not. I'm just a little bit concerned considering the fact that we still saw kind of a weak close in my opinion. For Palantir, we rebounded only to reject. My gut tells me we might be retesting 27. If we don't break through this, we could continue to fall all the way down to the 25s all over again. I still find that to be very, very probable. So just be very careful with the way in which the market is moving. For Supermicro, we're looking a little bit more bearish. We're on a bit of a downtrend right now. I'm going to be looking at resistance at 700. If that fails, we'll be dipping all the way down towards the 660s all over again. I called out the 680 and 660 area yesterday, and that's where we ended up going to, into the 660s. So I favor downside. The move is still more bearish. So watch and see if we get a little rebound all the way back up towards 720, if not a little bit higher, and then see if we get a big rejection from there and continue to dip all the way down to the 660s. Still looks more bearish to me. Rivian's on a bit of a downtrend, but it's trying to show some life. Tomorrow we're going to likely retest 16.46 to about 16.66, and we might reject in that range. If we break past 17, we're back to bullish. If it fails to do so, it could establish a lower high and reject. My gut tells me 16.66 could be coming, then a potential rejection. For SoFi, we're kind of rejecting right here. There's a bit of a downtrend being respected right here. Make sure you watch this range between 7.34 and 7.23. If we fail to break past 7.4 and turn bullish, then we could be kind of descending. But this is showing some life, in my opinion. I think that, we got a decent close on SoFi, so it might be testing 7.34 tomorrow and see if we could break that or not. If we manage to break that, look for a rebound. If not, we could reject, but look for a little bit of upside tomorrow. It's showing some strength. The IWM is also showing some strength. We have a nice cup and handle like structure, and I think that if we could manage to break past 222 or close above that, we could be looking for a test of these highs towards 224. If we lose 219 points, or basically 220, I'll be looking for a move all the way back down towards 216. My gut tells me this might be pushing all the way up towards 224 as we have some more upside potential on the IWM. For AMD, there's a big move to the downside that's been happening. We're continuing to make lower highs and lower lows, and we're continuing to fall quite a bit. I did call downside yesterday. We're actually losing our key support, so it's looking very bearish. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually rebound and retest the resistance towards 141 tomorrow, and if we reject, I'll be looking for a move all the way back down towards 133. The chart is more bearish, but look for a test of 141 and see what kind of reaction we get, at least moving forward. For other factors, we have ARM. ARM is on a bit of a move to the downside right now. We have this resistance around 152.5. We also have support way down here around 146. If that fails us, we'll be dipping even lower. So I think that there might be a retest of 152.5 tomorrow, and we'll have to see if ARM gets a rejection or not. But I think that because of the long wick that formed, there's a good chance it might grab liquidity and try to rebound just temporarily before we get that rug pull. So look for a test of 152.5, and we'll see what kind of move we make from there. Now, for Coinbase, it looks to me like it's trying to rebound in the after hours, get back above its 200 EMA. Generally, this does lead to more upside. So I think that this might lead to a test of 240 for tomorrow. And if we reject off 240, we could be dipping lower. If we break past 240, I'll be looking for 242 as resistance. My gut tells me 240 is going to be tested. We'll have to see if we reject or not, depending on the PCE data reports. For Amazon, there's a bit of a downtrend right now. My concern is there's a head and shoulders right now. we could retest 180, if not 182. And if we reject, we could turn all the way back down to about 176 all over again for a bit of a rug pull. To be bullish, you want to break past 183.5. If that breaks tomorrow, look for 186. If we fail to break past 183.5 and we just come short at 182, which I think we might do, there's a risk of downside, and that's looking very favorable on the patterns right now, in my personal opinion. For Meta is looking more bearish. We're barely holding 455. We might rebound to test 460, previous support becoming resistance. If we break past 460, we're going to be looking for a pushback up to about at least 466. If we reject off 460, we might be coming down. The trend favors a push for 460, then a rejection, and move all the way back down towards lower levels like 450. So that's looking more favorable to me. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. But be very, very careful and very mindful. For Microsoft, we're looking a little bit more bearish as well. We could retest some resistance all the way up here towards this 420, basically 424 could be retested later on, but we're not ready for that bounce quite yet. So I think we might retest just 420, and if we fail to break through that, we'll continue lower as the trend is more bearish. As of right now, we look more bearish on Microsoft, and there's a risk of us dipping down to about 413. Microsoft looks more bearish. Might be a small rebound to 420. In the future, I could see a rebound to 424, but I don't think we're ready yet. So I favor 420, then potential rejection is the most likely possibility. And then also for Google, we're looking a little bit more bearish to me. We have this support to be watching for around 165. There's no sign of a bounce on Google. It just continued to fall today. So maybe we retest 170, then start tipping down to 165. That's looking more favorable to me. For the memes, I know a lot of people like to listen to GameStop and AMC analysis. Just know that right now GameStop's looking bearish. It did end up coming down to about 23, exactly what we called out before. Rebounded only to reject. So if we fail to hold above 24.2, we will likely continue to tip all the way down towards 22.85. For AMC, it looks like it's going to be retesting 5.1. If we break that, I'm going to be looking for a test of 5.4. We got some bullish news, which is why it's bouncing. If you reject off 5.1, though, and we don't hold it, we're coming back down towards 4.86. So watch to see if we can break resistance or not. There's still a risk on the chart. DJT is also kind of dipping a bit, but it's trying to rebound. It's on a downtrend. That's why I said it's dipping, but I think it could actually retest 32.45. So watch 32.45 tomorrow. We might see a little bounce in DJT. And we'll see if it rejects off that or not, but look for a little bit of upside. The VIX is also uptrending so far. We're going to be watching 19 as resistance. If this breaks, we're going all the way into the 20 plus area. If you end up rejecting off 19, we could be dipping back down towards 17. Overall, the VIX is looking more bullish in my personal opinion. For the 10-year treasury yield, this remains bullish. Might try to test 4.269. If that breaks, 4.32 is coming. That could be a little bearish for the markets. And on the dollar, I'm still a little bit concerned. We still have an inverse head and shoulders. I'm not sure if this is a trap or not, but if the dollar breaks past resistance around 104.5, this could lead to more downside in the markets for a test of 104.76. So you want to be very careful. As of right now, the dollar has more upside potential, which could lead to more downside in the markets. So the bears still have a lot of power. The bears are not necessarily done. The bears are still strong, but tomorrow morning we could rebound a bit in the market thanks to PCE. But then the question is, will the move last? If we do get a little rebound, will the move last? I can't promise that. It depends on what kind of reaction we get and how strong the bulls truly are. But right now, at the time I'm speaking, the bears are still stronger. The bears still have a bigger edge. So make sure you keep that in the back of your guys' minds. With that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow before the market opens to give you guys an update on PCE and then talk about how the charts are looking during the pre-market. Until then, I'll see you guys very soon. Have a good day, night, or evening, depending on where you are around the world. And I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. Thank you and peace out.